Really, the goal is just to use our stories to bring veterinary medicine to life for the pet caretakers of the world. And we're doing it because we believe that educating these caretakers is the most powerful thing that we can do to improve the life quality of all of the pets that we love. All right. Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Natalie Keith.
Dr. Mariah Goodall.
And this is Vet Tales. We are talking about toxins today.
Yeah.
So it's a broad topic.
It is.
Yeah, we'll see what we get covered, but
right.
It's always the gamble with us is where exactly are we going to get?
Yeah.
During the podcast.
What stories are we going to tell?
Yes. Yeah. So, and I mean, this is a bit brutal because I feel like I feel like we should start off with the tale of why we're talking about toxins today.
Yeah.
Which
kind of a heartbreaker.
It is a heartbreaker. So yeah. That's the, warning, I guess, warning label on this story. We had a 11-month-old boxer come in that was coughing up blood and had blood in her lungs, and blood work showed she was not able to clot. Her coag profiles were prolonged. She had no platelets left, and platelets are the little guys that go and plug all the holes. And them like duct tape, I guess, and on the vessels. And we started plasma, we started vitamin K, tried to aggressively manage this blood loss, but unfortunately within a couple hours of her arrival, she had began having seizures, and then eventually, the blood loss in her lungs specifically caused her to pass away. So it was heart-wrenching because the dog had a known history of having eaten rat poison 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And those anticoagulant rodenticides, so the ones that make them bleed, if we catch it and we know about it, oftentimes we can manage them to where they have no symptoms of having done that.
Yeah. And I think also the scary thing about those, or maybe tricky, is that... so the dog eats rat poison, let's say, and then the owners realize, he ate rat poison 3 days ago, but he's fine. And what you don't realize is that those are staying in the body for 3 weeks. They really, like the old school anticoagulant rat poisons, like your warfarin.
Yeah, your warfarin.
Those were much shorter duration, but those bromethylene toxins that we see in most of our rat poisons today, unless they're vitamin D, which we'll get into later, but the 3 weeks. 3 weeks is how long you have to actively continue to treat the dog. So even if your dog ate the rat poison, you know it, you get your medicine from the veterinarian, you have to continue those therapies for 3 weeks, or your dog could still bleed out at 2.5 weeks.
Yep.
Which is what happened with this particular dog. I don't think she had received any treatment, unfortunately, but again, she was fine for 2 weeks until eventually she had depleted her system of coagulation tools and the hemorrhaging began. And by that point, it was just too much.
Yeah, it's a really tragic story. And there's such long-acting drugs. So many rats were getting resistant to warfarin.
Yeah.
So they had to make them last longer.
I know.
And so now when you have a goofy 11-month-old boxer who's eating everything, including chicken bones, apparently also.
Yeah, that was another a scare factor for her. She had chicken bones in her stomach, and we were worried she might have had a perforation. And anyway,
but then you end up with a pet that needs some more long-term care.
Yeah,
and it's important also. One thing I get frustrated with sometimes with those cases is it's important to follow up and make sure at that 3-week mark that you can come off, because some of those pets
100%
need it up to 6 weeks, I've seen.
Yeah, so yes, I remember that little Jack Russell we had that was like that. We were like, okay, now we can take him off. And then we're like, oop, another week. So yeah, what we typically will do is start them on vitamin K, which is if you have an anti-coagulating type of rat poison, then vitamin K is the standard treatment plan once you have them stabilized, and then we will have them what I do is have them come back 48 hours after their last vitamin K. So they do it for 3 weeks, then they come back in 2 days after that, and we check their coags and say, can you do this on your own? Or do you need to continue having supplements with vitamin K so that your clotting cascade isn't interrupted?
Yeah. And just FYI, so vitamin K is what actually helps the liver basically recycle those clotting factors. Your body doesn't make new ones every time they're used. It recycles them using vitamin K.
Yeah, and so the toxin binds that vitamin K, essentially, is stopping the clotting cascade from renewing. Mm-hmm. And so we have to keep giving the body new vitamin K.
Yep.
So that we can keep the clotting cascade happening. Yeah. So it's a little complicated, and I think that's the whole thing is, like, people are really notorious about, like, I'll take my antibiotics till I feel better, then I quit. Mm-hmm. And the dogs look fine.
Yes, that's the goal.
Yeah, but it's sort of like taking your allergy medicine so you don't sneeze. It's like, well, but if you stop taking it, your allergies will come back. Mm-hmm. But this is way worse than that. This is bleeding to death. So, yeah, it's not good. So my other tale is, I'm sure I've told you this story. Like, I feel like it happened probably while you were here. My timeline gets a little weird, but we were...
Max.
No, it was Bill.
Oh, it was Bill. Yeah.
Yeah, so we live in kind of a country neighborhood. We don't live there now. Completely related to this story. But we had this little man that lived kind of next door-ish, like across our little drives. And we had a shared gate between us. And one morning, my husband goes out to feed horses. And it's kind of like, I can't remember if it's spring or fall now, but it's like that dewy season. And he goes out and he's like, sees this white bucket in the middle of our yard underneath our tree. And he's like, what is that white bucket just sitting there? That's so weird. And so he walks over to it, which is like on the opposite end of our acreage as the horses, kind of in the opposite direction. So he walks over there and he can see these little footprints in the dew all the way from the guy's front porch out to underneath our tree. And then there's the bucket. And then all the way back to his house, another little set of dewy footprints. And the bucket was a giant bucket, like 3 gallons of rat bait. And so I was immediately panicked, right? Because that's the first thing you should always do in a situation like that, if possible. And then I make my dogs throw up, because both of them had been outside that morning already to go to the bathroom and whatever. And Bill threw up loads and loads and loads of dewormer. But the good news is that meant that he'd probably ingested it recently enough. Yeah. And then we put him on vitamin K and monitored his blood work, and he was totally fine, and there was no ill event from that. I put Max on vitamin K too, even though he didn't have any rat bait in his throw up. But I felt like, better safe than sorry, because there's no harm in giving vitamin K if you're wrong. So we survived that episode. So that's like the other end of the spectrum on how those can go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you're proactive.
Yeah.
Your dog can just like mainline rat poison and be okay.
Yeah, as long as you're supporting the system to offset that mechanism, then they don't necessarily have to suffer ill consequence. I think the tricky part is when owners don't know.
Yeah.
Which statistically is 30% of the time in the last study that I read, which has been a minute ago actually, but 30% of dogs that are proven to have rat poison in the system have owners that swear there is no way it could have happened.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
It is scary. But, you move into a house, maybe it's a rental, or, you bought it from someone, and you have no idea that in the crawl space there's rat poison.
Yeah.
And, there's rats under there, so your little Jack Russell Toxin trying to get under there. And you can live there for years. I've definitely had people who were like, they saw the poison, so they come in and they're like, we've been in this house 3 years and I've never seen this.
Yeah, for sure.
It was, in the back of a cabinet or
behind like a built-in structure, and then you decide to, remove that and find surprises.
Yeah. So it happens for sure.
I had this question yesterday come up because we did like a 2-minute Facebook Live video on rat poison. And the client says, what about cats that eat mice that have eaten bait? I mean, what do you typically, like, what's your fear level on that?
And I think I saw your answer to that.
Which honestly, I stole from Dr. East. That's what they told her in school. Because it was always so vague. They wouldn't ever set on an answer for me. But Dr. Eastep said that they told her that yes, but then it was like, I don't know.
Yeah, so, it's still active in their system. Yeah. So it could be active in the cat system. So I think for me, depending on how much I love my barn cats, how good of a barn cat they are.
And how easily it is to medicate them.
Yeah. I would probably go ahead and treat them.
Yeah. Yeah. It could happen to a house cat, too. Because, again, same scenario. You maybe don't even know there's rat poison in the house. Mice come out in the winter. It's your first winter there. And then now you have little drugged mice running around and your cat inside catches it. Granted, my cat would never eat the mice. But... it could happen. If they don't eat the mice, then no big deal.
Yeah, you're no big deal. But yeah, if they're eating mice, especially if it's your first year in that house, I think I would be extra cautious.
Or even if you live in town and your neighbors are big rat poison people, then the mice could definitely get the poison from one house and scurry across.
They can.
And so I think just with that 30% in general and or this cat question of eating mice and so forth, I think the next most helpful thing would be to be aware of what you're looking for in dogs that maybe are poisoned.
Yeah. So, that so varied because this boxer we had come in, her chief complaint was coughing up blood. So there you go, coughing. You can have just GI upset, vomiting up blood, bloody diarrhea. Bruising is a big one, which can be kind of hard on those dark-colored dogs.
Yeah, or really long-haired dogs. And even, because you can look at their gums for petechiation, but who's doing that? As besides you. She raised her hand, for those of you who couldn't see that. But true story, yeah. If you're brushing your dog's teeth and you're noticing these little red pinpoint, and that could be any number of clotting disorder. It doesn't mean that they necessarily got into rat poison, but it does mean you have a problem.
Yeah, it does. And so you need to bring it in. And, if we're suggesting rat poison, even if you don't think it's there, just hop on board the vitamin K train.
Yeah, it's cheap, it's easy, it's safe.
Yeah.
And it's just a chewable pill once a day, could save your dog's life.
Yeah.
It's like taking the malaria pill when you go, to the malaria places. Just 5 cents a pill. Just take it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want malaria.
Because you don't want malaria. I hear it's horrible, so don't recommend. Yeah. But yeah, so when in doubt, do the vitamin K. A lot of times our blood, when we're running blood work, we're not actually finding the toxin. We're finding the damage that's left behind. That indicates it's there.
Yeah, the low platelets or, those coagulation times are long.
Anemia, possibly, depending on
how much they're bleeding. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're not sure, if you're fearful that your animal might have got into a rat poison, then just let us check. When in doubt. Yep. Check it out. Okay, so what about vitamin D toxicosis? I know. That's how I feel about it, too.
Yeah. Because, the anticoagulants, you have this pretty nifty antidote, basically, vitamin K. Your other ones, your vitamin D, your cholecalciferol is what you'll read on the label. Don't use.
Oh, God, please don't.
Please don't use.
Yeah, now sometimes, someone has put this in your environment. It's not your fault, but don't buy it.
Don't buy it. Because what it does is it messes up the signaling in the body for where the calcium should go. And so you have just crazy calcium in the bloodstream. It messes up your kidneys. It'll mess up just your neuron firing. So you'll get dogs who have tremors or seizures even. But typically the kidneys are going to go first. And so you'll have a dog who's just...
in renal failure and now having seizures.
Yeah. And there's no antidote.
Nope.
It's fluids and fluids and more fluids and a hope and a prayer.
A hope and a prayer and time and and then repeat that again.
Yep.
It is no fun. Now, again, getting inducing vomiting immediately is probably your best, like if you know that they've gotten into any toxin of this type. I mean, there are some things you don't want to induce vomiting over, but 90% of the time, get them to vomit. We can do activated charcoal to try to bind what is in the stomach so we're not absorbing it into the bloodstream. And then, fluids. So it's scary. Those dogs do not do well.
No, they don't. I mean, just historically, we've not had great luck with it because you almost can't flush that calcium out, depending on how much they got, but you almost can't flush that calcium out as fast as the body's mobilizing it.
Yep. Yeah, and it just messes up the whole system. It's a delicate system.
Yeah.
Actually. Which I think, you're looking at labels, maybe you're not, but if you have a dog that's been, you have suspected, or cat, obviously, that has suspected to ingest something, bring the package with you, because we can tell a lot about what we need to do for treatment if you can find that package. Like, so in the case of my neighbor's bucket, it was great because it had the label right on there. We knew exactly what toxin that was in there, so it was super helpful. I don't even know why he would do that. My dogs were not, like, problematic. He didn't have livestock. They were in their yard. Like,
I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to get rid of it, and he thought...
He was like, oh, yeah, I don't know what to do with all this rat wood. Yeah, that's a very sweet intention that you've assigned to him. That was not where I was going to go with it. Anyway, I digress. But yes, make sure you find those packages if at all possible, because that is super helpful for us.
Yeah.
I mean, bromethylene versus, what are some of the other, like, because there's several of those newer anticoagulation ones. But we can usually tell by looking at the root of the word, and then even, researching it, what its mechanism of action is. And so we can offset damage the best we can.
Yeah. Luckily, we have this pretty cool little tool that helps us.
We're talking about the Tox Buddy?
The Tox Buddy.
Yeah, that is so helpful so, like, any toxin, right? Like, accidentally dropped my blood pressure medicine, and my 5-pound Yorkie got it, we can... Even if it's not something that, because there's a billion drugs out there that people have to use for different things, and dogs will accidentally get into them for whatever reason, and we can just plug it into this system with the weight of the dog, how much do we think they got into, what's the name of it, and it will tell us a ton of information.
Yeah, how worried we need to be, what steps do we need to take, what symptoms do you need to look out for. It's really amazing. So yeah, if you guys have questions, and you're a client of ours. Call and ask, and we can.
Yes, if you have questions and you're not a client of ours, call your vet immediately.
Yes.
Like, do not delay. Because if you can get these dogs to vomit up whatever they ingested within 4 hours, you're way ahead of the game.
Yep, you are.
Sooner the better. Up and at 'em. And inducing vomiting at home can be done. People use peroxide or salt, I think, commonly.
Yeah, I've used peroxide a couple times.
That's what I did with Bill that morning.
Yeah,
was peroxide.
I've done peroxide on Sadie, and my mother-in-law's dog once ate a whole chocolate cake with chocolate frosting.
Nummy. I would totally do that too.
I mean, I would too. Like, I don't blame him, but we induced vomiting.
That's amazing. One of my favorite emergencies was, which is a great timing actually, because we're almost to Halloween. By the time this goes out, it might be Halloween. And I had this emergency back in the day when we were still coming up in the middle of the night. And this dog had gotten up on the counter because she was a standard poodle, so she had some legs on her. She gets up there, gets the whole trick-or-treat basket, eats the candy wrapper and all of it. And so she was actually a pretty dainty, like, proper young lady. And so he brings her in, and I'm trying to get her to vomit, and, like, now we have, of course that's been probably 10 years ago, but now we have those eye drops that are amazing, and you just put a little drop in the eye and it creates this emesis effect, and then you can immediately reverse it with some other medications so they're not nauseous forever.
Right.
But this has been a minute ago, and we didn't have, like, as many great options, and we're trying to get her to vomit. And I'm telling the dad, I was like, leave her alone. She doesn't want to throw up in front of you. And he's like, that's crazy. And I was like, no, it isn't crazy. She's trying to be proper, and she won't vomit. And he's like, finally, he's kind of like irritated that she won't vomit. And he's like, well, can I at least check out while we're waiting? And I was like, sure. So he lets go of her leash in the lobby so that he can like stand up at the desk where I'm like trying to help him check out. Because back in the day, again, it's just me and this client in this building, which sounds crazy now that I'm saying it out loud.
It is a little crazy.
It is a little crazy, but that's how we did it. And as soon as he let go of the leash and turned around, she puked up that entire bucket of candy all over the lobby floor. There was Twix and Snickers and Milky Way wrappers, melted chocolate goo everywhere. Oh, it was fabulous. So yes, those are other reasons why we have to make the dogs puke.
Yeah. Chocolate's a common toxicity.
I mean, it's so tempting for all of us.
It is.
And when you don't have opposable thumbs, like, sometimes you have to eat the wrapper, too.
You do. Yeah.
It's just part of it.
It is.
Yeah. One must do what one must do to ingest chocolate. So, anyway, what else can you think of? Oh, so, okay, let's just say it's a different kind of toxin, like you were talking about, we might look on ToxBuddy. Let's use ibuprofen. Because ibuprofen's a really common one. So let's say the dog, because they're candy coated too.
Yeah, they taste good.
They actually do. They're better than an M&M. Why does an M&M covering not taste as good as an ibuprofen covering?
You know, that's a question for whoever makes M&Ms.
Mars?
Is that Hershey or is it Mars?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Someone will have to, if anybody listens to this, you'll have to answer that question first, because this is not our field of expertise.
Right.
But anyway, so we'll have dogs get, like, a handful or like a bottle of ibuprofen. 1 or 2 ibuprofen, not a huge deal, but I have seen dogs nearly die from ingesting a handful of ibuprofen pills. And I think what's tricky about things like those types of toxins is that sometimes it takes a few days to tell the story. So you can come in, we can induce vomiting, we can put them on fluids and run blood work, and the blood work might look totally fine, but a week later is when you might see the kidneys are like really offended by the situation. Or the liver.
Yeah, we actually had one recently. She was a little dog, and she had gotten like 200 milligrams, and so ToxBuddy was like, you should be cautious.
Not like crazy, but
so we induced vomiting. It was one of the gel caps. So you saw the little green in her vomit.
Yay!
So we knew we got it up, went ahead and gave her activated charcoal, and then had her come back and checked her blood work and actually, or his blood work.
It was a boy?
It was a boy.
Yeah, I can't mess that up.
You can't. But it looked great. For him, he actually had some pre-existing kidney disease, so that was always fun.
Yeah, you gotta factor that in.
But it looked great for him, and so it was like, okay, so dodged a bullet there. But yeah, ibuprofen, 200 milligrams to us is like, I take 800.
Yeah. I mean, granted, we're bigger than Yorkies.
Yes.
But still.
And so you have to be really cautious with it. And then careful and make sure you come in for that follow-up, because what if our kidneys hadn't looked great, especially in a dog that already has problems.
High risk for kidney disease getting worse, so watching those things. And I think a lot of times clients will come in and they'll like think that the blood work we're doing is looking for that toxin, but that's not how it works. You could take blood samples and send it to a tox lab and say, can you check for this particular drug? But you would have to know which drug you were looking for, and then like how much is in there, and does that matter? And at that point it's like days later and you're not sure that you actually need that information anymore. And so it's really misleading. So really you're just looking about, like, is the body doing okay?
Yeah. I mean, especially, with, like, ibuprofen, a week later, the dog's either already sick or you dodged your bullet.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, so there's that. The mushrooms, too, is another toxin that I'll see dogs get into. Like, mushrooms will pop up in the backyard. Not all of them, I think, bother dogs, but I've seen several come in with, like, acute hepatitis or liver angriness. So that's always an interesting one.
Yeah, and that one's tough because you don't always know. Because they'll pop up overnight. You let your dog out while you get ready, And you come home for lunch and your dog's sick.
Yeah. Yeah, and they can get really nasty GI signs pretty quickly. But, and so a lot of times you're just speculating. Yeah. Again, you're just like, okay, well, we know that it's a rainy season. We know we have a lot of mushrooms. These symptoms fit. Your liver values are angry. Your dog was otherwise healthy last week. So you treat the symptoms. You recheck in a month to make sure the liver is, like, better. And you go on with your life and hope they don't do it again because clearly they like to eat mushrooms.
I mean, I like mushrooms.
I do too, but they do scare me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, all the morel hunters.
I know.
I'm always like, I'm just so worried.
We did that once, though.
Yeah.
We had some that were growing up around our pond, and they were so good.
Yeah.
But they're pretty distinct looking mushrooms, so you feel okay about it. It's still weird, though.
Yeah.
You just never. Mushrooms, they're their own. They have their own classification, right? Like fungi. Mm-hmm. Like that's how weird they are.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not a plant.
Not a normal thing.
Mm-mm. No, they're their own little guy. So anyway, I can't think of any other questions that people ask us about toxins a lot.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think we've covered kind of the most common
ones.
Except for marijuana, but I think that's
yeah.
Might be its whole thing.
I mean, we can do it. It's only 25 minutes. Let's do marijuana because we see it a lot.
Yeah, we do. And don't be embarrassed.
Yeah, don't be embarrassed. We're not going to tell anybody.
Yeah, I mean, we don't care.
Shoot us straight.
Yeah.
Tell us that you have weed in the house so we can fix your dog. Like, that is the end of the story. Uh-huh. Otherwise, we're back there, like, scrambling, beating our heads against the wall. Like, what else could this be? Because they swear it's not that. And then ultimately, we kind of just, honestly, if we're going to be honest, what we usually do is be like, they're lying, it's weed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if I have a dog come in who is ataxic, so stumbling around, leaking urine is, like, the symptom that is almost always there. Mm-hmm. And then
difficult to rouse them.
Yep. So if I have that suite of symptoms, I'm treating your dog for marijuana toxicity.
No matter what you say. No matter what you say. We are sure. And, you know, I mean, because honestly, what else would it be other than maybe some other drug that causes sedation? Mm-hmm. And so your treatment's going to be the same, which is flush.
Yeah. And really, that's what we do is just flush their body out. Some dogs handle marijuana just fine.
Yeah. Quantity, size of dog, like those things.
Yeah. And then metabolism. You know, one thing that is actually really interesting when they're studying, like, canine metabolism, marijuana versus humans, like, we, as humans, metabolize it all very similarly. So the products I break it down into is going to be almost identical to what you do. But if we compared, like, Max to Blitzen, they may have wildly different byproducts, and so we don't exactly know how that's going to affect them. And some of that also has to do with, like, do you have I don't know the uppers and the downer weeds, you know?
Yeah, they're different plants, and I don't know that much about it, but I will say that it definitely. There's a wide variation in the way that they're going to present, depending on which exactly they got into, how much, how big is the dog, and like you say, how they process it as an individual animal.
Yeah. So we treat all of it like it's dangerous and flush. Flush. And a lot of them present dehydrated. And that's always my big worry, is not so much are they going to process this okay, it's you know, what are their kidneys going to do in the meantime?
Yeah, and the GI tract, I mean, that does horrible things for your GI tract to get all shriveled up like that.
And a lot of times they ingest it along with chocolate or along with...
Yes, because it'll be like in the brownie.
Yeah. Or they ate a whole thing of THC butter, and so now you're worried about pancreatitis.
Right? That's so funny. Oh, who can blame them? It smells good.
I mean, I love butter.
Yeah, and brownies. Yeah, like for sure. I got no judgment against them. I would probably be in the same boat. So anyway, and then occasionally we'll see methamphetamines, and that's a whole lot different. Those are scary. We do have like the Narcan available, or naloxone. Is that what the actual drug name of it is? Or did I just make that up?
I think you're right.
I think that's right. But anyway, so occasionally we'll see that. It's not very often. And we do help, like, police officers learn how to give that to their dogs in case they're finding it out in the field and sniffing it, because that's what dogs do.
Yeah.
They'll get it in their nose, and then those dogs are in a pickle. And so sometimes they have to give those little tubes in the nose like every 30 minutes to every hour until finally the system stabilizes. So dogs can definitely die that way. But that's a whole different beast. Different completely than our poor little weed dogs who just need a nap and some fluids, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, well, hopefully we've covered some helpful information for people on toxins.
Yeah.
Don't give your dogs grapes and raisins, macadamia nuts. Please stop giving them garlic as if it were a flea preventative, because it isn't, and it causes hemolytic anemia.
Yes. It's wild how many times people are like, oh yeah,
It's all natural.
It is.
So is black widow venom. Let's not.
Arsenic.
Come on. Yeah.
Cyanide.
Oleander. Yeah, cyanide's in the middle of apple seeds, by the way. So if you're giving your dog apples, don't give them the seeds. Don't give them avocado seeds for various reasons. It is the perfect size to cause a foreign body obstruction for one.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh.
Yeah.
Xylitol is another one that we see on occasion.
Good
So
point.
if you're buying peanut butter for your dog, make sure it doesn't have any xylitol. Keep any of your sugar-free gum up.
Yeah, anything that says sugar-free on it, don't give it to your dog, because it's almost always got those artificial sugars in there, and their body doesn't respond the same way as ours. It essentially still thinks it's glucose, and it isn't, and so they dump all this insulin into the system, and they'll become hypoglycemic, which is very dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have seizures, sudden death. I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, so no sugar-free things for your dog. We probably shouldn't be eating it either, honestly.
I always wonder. And they even say, like, for us, it doesn't, you don't necessarily spike your insulin then, but you become more insulin resistant.
Yeah, it definitely...
for a couple days after you eat.
Yeah,
So
it'll
anyway,
mess with you.
it
I mean,
does.
the gum I'm okay with, but I try to avoid it and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess I just feel like gum is so small. You're not really...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Team J disorder over here. I don't chew gum.
Oh, fair. I probably shouldn't. But I like it. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, those are the main ones that you want to avoid. People know not to give chocolate. Don't let them eat your cigarette butts. Don't let them eat coffee grounds.
Nicotine toxicities are wild. And they're hard to diagnose.
They are. They're
'Cause
really
they
weird.
look like a lot of other things.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, be
We
careful.
don't see them as much as we used to, though. I think probably because the vape thing.
A lot of people are moving away from actual
cigarette butts, because the cigarette butt is really where they would eat the butt, and then that's where they would get sick.
Yeah.
Or nicotine gum would be another place they would get toxicity. So, which again, you don't see as much as you used to, as we did back in the 90s. Boy, everybody had nicotine gum. Anyway, all right. Well, that's all I got for today.
Yeah.
But if you guys have questions, let us know. And again, I'm going to stick with when in doubt, check it out. Call your vet. We're here to help.
Yeah, I mean, we would rather see your dog immediately after and decontaminate it than play the wait-and-see game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it never plays out.
And the other thing I said in the Facebook Live yesterday for rat poison was your 3 things to remember were puke, panic, and package. I just think there's no way people aren't going to panic. Let's throw it in there. We need them to puke and bring the package.
Yep.
That's it. So that's your words of wisdom. All right, guys. That's all we have for today. I hope y'all are having a good one. If you have any questions, you always can ask them on the podcast commentary. You can email, call, or text at Northside Veterinary Hospital if we're your people, or even if we're not, you just send an email us. That's great. And that's all we have for today.
Yep.